go to proxy wars. Aren't proxy wars supposed to be like people don't know you're doing a proxy war, or also it's not a proxy war? If it's public, it's no longer proxy. You're taking sides. So do you understand what I'm saying when I say so? So let's just say if you are saying U.S. is doing a proxy war using Ukraine against Russia, U.S. is Ukraine. Versus when sometimes they would use Iraq, Iran, they would use these surrounding countries, and behind closed doors they're supporting one of the countries, but not everybody knows about it. That's the right way to do proxy, not a public proxy war.
Well, it depends how you define a proxy war. There are proxy wars where a country will want it to be done clandestinely, so that it will have plausible deniability. For example, Iran's support of the Houthis in Yemen is a proxy war like that, where they say, we're not supporting the Houthis. All of this stuff is, even though they're supplying arms, and the North Koreans are in there too, helping them with
Saudi Arabians
to Scud missiles, right, against Saudi Arabia.
But that's very well known. You're saying that was supposed to be clandestine
at the time, though. At the time,
well,
afterwards, it's
but
well.
I feel like there's a lot of proxy wars that are out in the open. I mean, look at what's going on in Gaza, Israel.
Yeah.
I mean, Palestine, Iran. I mean, that's very well known.
The Vietnam War,
Libya, Vietnam. Okay,
the Vietnam War with the Soviet Union.
I think the intention is what you're saying is to keep it on the DL.
No,
but everyone finds out eventually.
If you're doing it the way we're doing it, we're not like just supporting Ukraine. We're anti-Russia. We are we are Ukraine.
Yeah, but so is the entire EU. It's not just United States.
I totally agree, but what I'm saying here is this is not the proper way of doing a proxy war.
Well,
just say we are going to defend these guys because we're not going to do anything to work with Russia. We're not going to have a conversation with Russia to try to figure out a way to, eliminate this war, slow down the war, or play synergists to say, listen, can we figure out a way to make this work? No, we don't even want to do that. He's the next this, and you saw when Biden one time, we have to get rid of him, and then he slip up, and then they come back and correct him. That was 3-4 months ago when he said that?
I remember.
He only says that because that's talked about behind closed doors. You don't say that and have a slip up if it's not something that's being talked about. People don't have slip ups like that. So it's no longer proxy, in my opinion. I get what you're saying when a proxy is using somebody else to go to it. It's wide open right now, and Putin knows it. So if you ever thought about negotiating with Putin and saying, Putin, but we're trying to make this work, and we want to figure out a way to compromise. This is not fair. We're losing, people are dying. Innocent kids are being, you don't want that on your, hands. That's on you. Nope, that argument is done with. Putin's not going to sit down with you and negotiate today and if he does, everything you say, he doesn't believe anything that comes out of your mouth. Am I wrong?
I think you might be wrong.
Okay. I hope I'm wrong.
Because we haven't tried to explore that. Before Russia invaded Ukraine, and I won't quibble over whether it's a proxy war or not. I mean, I think one can argue that it is a proxy war in the sense that Russian and U.S. troops are not directly engaged with each other. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about a proxy war.
That's a good thing.
And that's what most people, that's a good thing. But I also agree with you that certainly from the Russian perspective and from the NATO perspective, in terms of what we're saying publicly and all the rest, our objective does seem to be, to try to achieve regime change in Russia through the Ukraine. I mean, Senator Lindsey Graham, for example, has called, for providing no exit for Russia out of this, and that we're going to stay in this thing to the end. And there are some analysts expecting extraordinary results, from this. That, for example, that Putin could fall from power, that we could force the Russians to give up all their tactical nuclear weapons, that Russia will have to return all of the conquered territories from Ukraine, which I think is unrealistic and extremely dangerous to expect those outcomes. And this from people who, before the invasion happened, was expecting Russia to run over Ukraine in 72 hours. When your intelligence is so wrong, that ought to give you pause about whether you should be involved in the war when your intelligence is so wrong. And because I think it's wrong again, having these very unrealistic expectations. But the Russians offered a peace treaty, a 6-point peace treaty, before they invaded Ukraine, and I have argued, I think we could win the new Cold War in Ukraine by negotiating a peace with Russia offering to negotiate peace with Russia.
Are we doing that?
No, we're not.
Why are we not doing that?
Because the Biden administration claims they did, but they didn't seriously try to negotiate that peace. Okay, I think that because the Biden administration is listening to people who think that they can win the new Cold War against Russia by defeating Russia. I think they have a very short sight. Things are going well right now in Ukraine, and they want to keep pumping arms in there to make things as bad for the Russians as possible, and hope that maybe some of these really extraordinary developments that they're hoping for, that might be Putin will fall from power, or at least will give Russia such a bloody nose in Ukraine that the Chinese will be deterred from trying to invade Taiwan, because the same thing will happen to them. And that if we can use Ukraine, the proxy of Ukraine, to really inflict a serious defeat on the Russians, that it'll keep the Russians pacified and in their cage, for years to come. And therefore, this is it's worth doing this, and it's worth taking these risks to do that. And we're not really taking risks anyway, because everyone knows a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. And so Putin's nuclear threats are not going to be not going to be acted upon. And I think it's a very shallow, dangerous policy that we're following, that assumes that Russia will not resort to nuclear or EMP or cyber warfare on a large scale against NATO, Europe, or against the United States itself in order to prevail. It's also based on the premise that Russia is really on the ropes in a deeply serious way, and that might not be true. We don't know that is true at all. I mean, Russia has been fighting this war with one hand, with its left arm, and its right arm tied behind its back. They've only committed really a relatively small fraction of their forces, despite what's being said in the newspapers and all the rest. They have not fully mobilized to fight this war. Even John Bolton, who wants us to do what the Biden administration is doing and wants to have this war, a big war against Russia, even John Bolton is talking about, we need to be prepared to fight a war against Russia. He's calling it the 30 to 100 years war. Because this is because Putin, and not just Putin, but he believes the Russian elites, that this isn't just Putin's war, but that the Russian elites who want to restore the Russian Empire, that this is that they consider this essential, to their long-term geopolitical survival, to reconstitute the old USSR, including taking over Ukraine, and that they are going to be willing to fight 30 to 100 years, in Ukraine in order to achieve that objective.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.